Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release.
It's the Montress Tudor.
Like I said, better movement, spring drive
So,
potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
Their Super Ocean heritage. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday of the month.
Hey, it's old Davy Jones Locker coming in with the intro. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? Another day, another dollar. Been another great week in the watch community. Another wind up New York. Just came and went. So, man, they have those about every weekend now, it seems like. There's more watch trade shows than anything else out there. There's once a quarter.
Then Carter has liver pills?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What did you say? So you said that was like an actual company that sold liver pills?
Yeah, so back in the
liver pills?
Yeah, they were Carter's little liver pills. Ask your grandparents about them. My grandparents always said it. That was something my grandfather said to my father, and then grew up here. And I never knew what the heck it meant. But yeah, if you look it up, it's Carter's little liver pills, and they had commercials all the time in like the 40s, 50s, whatever. But
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah,
awesome. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Strap and Link. Brett and David again with you. As always, just you and me, buddy. It's just you and me against the world. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. Hey, well, we might get a couple people in here every now.
We don't need
and
no.
But I know you like us the most.
We don't need any sponsorships.
That's right.
Celsius, Quip,
Prime,
Indochino.
I don't even know what a Prime is.
Speaking of, it's Thursday night, man. I know this was like the only time we had available, but aren't the Bills playing tonight?
We are missing. The Bills play the. Don't tell me. I know who it is. Bucks.
The Bills.
Bucks.
Yeah. Bills and the Bucks.
So we're missing this for you guys. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Literally kickoff in 14 minutes. Kickoff. Yeah. So, all right. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and give you guys a little update on the show. So today we're talking about TAG Heuer. I am super excited to actually get into this brand. I've known about TAG for as far back as I can remember knowing about watches and just associating any watch to a brand and to a sport. So their motorsport heritage, again, I've just feel like I kind of grew up with that. So super excited to get into that today. Talk about a couple of collections, go into a fairly lengthy history portion today. Just lots of stuff, lots of points to make. So want to quickly jump into it. So that's kind of our show today. No mailbag, right? There's nothing.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
I think people are more into the podcast than they are on Instagram and the mailbag thing. You know, it's been tough. It's been tough.
Yeah. Well, hey, if anybody's got, if you got email or Instagram, let us know some more questions. We'll be happy to answer them.
You guys
so far, when we get the questions, they're normally good ones that have pretty good conversation. So definitely let us know.
But yeah, with that, of course, we hope that you guys are enjoying the show. And just one time today, we would like to ask all of you to share the show with a friend. If you've got a friend that's into watches or history for that matter, click the share button on the episode here, whether it's this episode, your favorite episode, just the show link in general, Apple, Spotify, wherever it is that you're listening. Again, share a show with a friend, spread the joy, spread the holiday cheer.
Holiday season coming rapidly.
It is. Hoping to get some sponsors in here sometime soon, shaking things up a little bit. So the more ratings, reviews, shares, downloads that we can get will help us get to that goal. We'll keep at this thing. We'll keep bringing you guys some fun content. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Just, holiday season coming along. So we've got a few ideas. I think we've got some pretty good episodes coming up as Thanksgiving and Christmas come. So, we'll leave it at that for now. But definitely share it with a friend and get some people that might be into watches or, just into a certain brand. Just share the brand episode they like and give them a little history to quiz a friend or two. So it'll definitely be good for them.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I do want to just kind of hark off of what Brett said about TAG. I mean, I was really excited to do this brand as well. I think this is one of those brands that everybody knows. I feel like everybody loves them, but then a lot of people love to hate them. When it comes to the watch community, which we all know can be a little snobby. from time to time, depending on a
A little
brand.
finicky.
But yeah, so, this is a good everyday brand that a lot of people know. Again, you see one of these is probably one of the most recognizable brands, if not the most recognizable brand that is affordable
Yeah.
to the most extent. But we'll dig into it, and I think this will be a good one.
And also something new that we've never done before. I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have a watch for sale between the two of us. I am selling one of my Grand Seikos, so not an ad for a sale here necessarily, but if you are interested potentially in a Grand Seiko, please DM us on Instagram. You can also email us at strapandlink@gmail.com, and I'll give you all the details, pictures, videos, information that you need in case that is something that you're looking at right now. And with that, let's roll it on. Founded in 1860 in, you guessed it, Switzerland by Edouard Heuer, who ultimately began making silver pocket watches on the family farm, a story that has become quite familiar to a lot of these brands, making watch shops out of, a small family farm or warehouse of sort. And by 1864, the company began operating under the name Edouard Heuer and Company, and had multiple locations in Switzerland, including in Bienne, where the brand would remain for the next 100 years, or over the next 100 years, rather. In 1869, Heuer changed watchmaking in a huge way with his first patent. And honestly, this kind of blew my mind whenever I first read about this. So, this patent covered a crown operated keyless winding system. So, this was the crown that everyone knows today. Yeah, Heuer patented that, had no idea. So previously, there had to be a key that you had to have. I had never even heard of this. I don't know if it was attached to the watch, but nonetheless, incredible that that's what happened before the crown. So yeah,
Yeah, I
Heuer
think
invented that.
I think is very understated. All this invention that we've talked about for multiple brands, the inventions that were made almost 200 years ago. You hear
Yeah,
1860, you think the 1900s, 1860 ain't very far away, but it's, I mean, Civil War time in America, and then all over
um,
the Europe and all.
yeah.
I don't know what was going on in 1860 in Europe, but but I mean, this is times you think very primitive,
Yeah,
times in US, and the fact that all of this small pinions and everything was being created and these small watches being created, it's just, I think it's overlooked a lot in watch history how long ago these things were made.
yeah, and yeah, just yeah. There, it's like it feels so long ago, and then at the same time, I wonder, like, when was the first clock made relative to this? And then you start to
Hmm.
look forward, and you're like, well, what's new in watchmaking in the last 100 years or in the last 50
Yeah.
years? There's so few things. Like spring drive comes to mind. It's like at the time that spring drive was created and produced, it probably was a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just goes to show like how long
In the
it's
last
been.
25 years has been the digital watch has been created. That's
Well,
about the only
yeah,
innovative thing. I feel like a lot of
yeah,
the stuff is just harking on old. I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. JLC is still innovating. There's still a lot of innovation, but a lot of these are still harking on fairly older movements from 50, 60, 70 years
yeah.
ago. And the newer things are the Apple Watch, and
Some
more,
things with
yeah, more computers, and which is a great feat. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a computer inside a watch, could you imagine that? But there's not a lot when it comes to the intricacies of internal
yeah,
watchmaking, probably that's changed in the last 50 years or so,
things
noticeably.
like the coaxial movement from Omega, the spring drive. It's
Yep.
it's incremental shifts forward for sure. We're talking things that reduce the amount of service, of the amount of time between servicing. So
Hmm. Yeah.
innovative, but in the grand scheme of things, nothing like replacing a key winding system with an attached crown. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and in the 1880s, sporting competitions were becoming more and more popular. And because of this, more and more people were, of course, watching, and they needed to make a more precise time keeping measurement. So they were figuring out here, hey, we need to cut things down from being, within a tenth of a second or whatever to a hundredth of a second, because they needed to make sure they knew who would win these races. Of course, that's what TAG is known for doing, is the race timekeeping. So because of this, Edouard Hoyer recognized that there was a growing need for accurate pocket watches and chronographs, so they began to produce the pocket chronograph in 1887. He also introduced a patent to improve the oscillating pinion. which, if you remember from our last episode, pinions were a lot of the time made by JLC at the time. So this allowed the chronograph to start and stop instantly with just the use of a push of a button. So again, your push button stop clock that you could think of. Imagine that. So by streamlining the design, the chronograph assembly and maintenance was also simplified. And Edouard deemed this innovation the perfect chronograph, and this is actually still used to this day. Moving away from sports for a minute, Edouard's son, Charles Auguste Heuer, met his physician, and in this meeting led to another innovation, the colorful scale of the Heuer symphometer, I think is how you...
Sphygmometer? Sphygmometer? I think that's
Yes,
how it's...
sphygmometer. Pocket chronograph, which was actually patented in 1908. This allowed physicians to determine their patient's pulse rate after counting heartbeats for only 20 seconds, which, of course, that is still a lot of the times used today as just a simpler measure than going through a whole pulse rate system machine.
Yeah, those are pulsometers today. So you
Yeah.
do see those on chronographs, not as often. You mostly see the tachymeter
Yeah.
on a chronograph, but yeah, pulsometers still out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as car and air travel became increasingly more popular, Heuer designed a new instrument to be installed on the dashboard of those vehicles and planes. The time of trip was a chronograph indicating the time of day on a larger main dial, within a smaller dial recording just the duration of a trip. And so the operator would use a pusher to start and stop this time of trip, quote unquote, recorder, something that we will come back to in a little bit. But hence, still to this day, every car in America, probably every single car in the world, has a trip setting on the odometer or on the instrument display, rather. Yeah. So
again, this is all, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was going to go back and just count really quick. So that is trip, that everyone knows that it's pulsometer. That is the actual pusher of a chronograph, and the crown. So if
Starting
anyone
out
ever
pretty
told
strong.
you, yeah, I mean, if anyone told you that TAG never did anything, like, come on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and all of this actually was happening in, the by the 1900s. So by the early 20th century, Heuer shifted production of their precise chronographs from pocket to wristwatch. And in 1914, the first wristwatch chronograph was born from them. Industries such as sports timing, industrial production, and artillery calculations demanded more of precise timing. So Charles Auguste, which was now at the time the leader of the company, headed this project to make stopwatches go from a fifth of a second on displays to a 50th or 100th of a second. And this was because the micrograph and the semicrograph. And split-second versions of this soon followed to show time differentials between the two competitors. The precision and reliability of Heuer's stopwatches made them to go from a just an outside person to a go-to supplier. And Heuer was actually selected to provide chronographs for the Olympic Games and the World Championship Alpine events. These were precursors for TAG Heuer to time most of the motorsports and selling events for the decades to follow. Of course, this is including the Indianapolis 500 and a lot, if not all, of the Formula One races. I think, Break, you would know, do they do all of the Formula One races, or?
They are, well, Rolex now is a title sponsor.
Yeah.
TAG is,
I know there's just so many watch title, sponsors
Yeah.
for Formula One and all that.
Yeah, I think Rolex is like the official time now, but
Okay.
but TAG, I mean, yeah, TAG was, I don't know how like sponsorship worked back then. If there was like title sponsors the way that there are now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're still in F1 heavily. Yeah, and we'll get into that. In 1933, Heuer introduced the Autavia, a name that would continue in its catalog for decades and is still in the catalog for that matter. This 12-hour stopwatch was a dashboard timer originally to meet the toughest automotive and aviation requirements from the TAG Heuer website. So hence the name Auto and Aviation. Autavia comes there. In 1935, Heuer's Flieger, or their pilot chronograph, was a 2-register chrono in a chrome-plated case. The rotating bezel there included a triangular marker used to mark a time, such as a target time. We talked about this on the Longines episode with their reintroduction of the pilot Magetic. TAG actually say that this is used to mark a time, such as a start or a stop time. Early models had a single pusher for the start, stop, reset sequence. And then later versions added a second pusher so that the pilot could start and reset or start and restart the timer, but not reset it. So they could start it and then start it again, but they don't have to actually reset the entire time. So that's what the second pusher there did. So of course, we all know that that's pretty common in chronographs today, but one more trend setting from TAG. In 1940, the brand decided to mark each of their dials with Heuer. Because prior to this time, they often had no branding, or they actually left the branding up to distributors and sometimes even retailers, which is something that I don't think that we've heard about on the podcast
Yeah, that's
before.
kind of different.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard of brands that were just kind of laissez-faire about who marked their dials.
Especially by the
Um,
mid 1900s.
yeah. That's another. Yeah, I mean, this was like late. This is pretty late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is really funny because in our watch society here in Atlanta, one of these actually came up for sale. So one of the
Hmm.
models that I looked at on both the TAG website and now I've seen actually two of from this watch society. So these are the TAG Heuer Mariograph. And like Abercrombie and Fitch, for example, was a retailer back then that
Yeah.
bought these, and they sort of rebranded it as the Seafarer.
Yeah.
So
And
if
we'll
you've
talk
ever,
about that in a second. Yeah.
yeah. So if you ever seen those, you would really not know that it was to do with tag
Well,
whatsoever. I
it's
guess on the
kind of,
back of it, I haven't really looked at that. I don't know if on the back casing if there's some marking about tag, but it's
yeah.
really interesting that they actually even changed the name of it. Even
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, I mean, there's still watch companies that do this now. I believe Fossil does it a lot with, I believe for a while it was even Tiffany and Co. If not, it still is. There are a lot of, luxury, in parentheses, watch, brands that you would buy at Belk or something, that the movements and everything's actually made through Fossil. So that still does happen today.
interesting.
I guess it's just, it's a little different. At the time, maybe Tag was obviously not as well known as they are today. And maybe that's why they finally said, okay, we can step out and stand on our own feet under our own brand name. So that does still happen. And of course, Fossil makes their own watches as well, but they are known for doing some more luxury brand watches as well.
Yeah. It was the first time I had actually ever heard of it, and like I said, it was just so funny to me. I was like, "Cool, first time I've ever heard of it." Very next day, boom, one of these Abercrombie and Fitch
Yeah.
Seafarers goes up for sale, and for anyone wondering, they are not cheap. I think this one was up for like 35K.
Yeah.
So these watches are apparently very rare and yeah, very
Mhm.
pricey. So
Yeah, and before we move on here, just talking about this, let me just tell you, I know I said Fossil. They actually make the movements and are design manufacturers for Burberry, Columbia, Diesel, Michelle, Marc Jacobs, Michael Kors, Skagen, Adidas, all of these watches
wow,
that you would see at different places, they're actually made and manufactured by Fossil. So just so
wow.
you know that, yeah.
So if you're buying a $300 Michael Kors watch,
You're buying a $300 Fossil
basically buying a Fossil
with
watch. That's
Michael Kors
interesting.
on it. Yeah. So at
Not
least
bad.
and the movement will work. And
Yeah.
again, like we talk about, if you're going to buy that, because a lot of the girls, of course, love that, and especially growing up, you want to buy something that you know will work for the next 5 years. And that's why a lot of their Michael Kors watches they probably had for 10 years and they still work,
Right.
because they're actually made by at least a reputable,
Yeah.
manufacturer
Yeah.
versus, movement or something like that, where they're just straight
Oh,
out of,
that reminds me.
Chinese shop.
Let's talk about that at the end for
Yeah.
listeners that
Yeah.
are going to stick around. Let's talk about that at the end.
Finally, in 1942, Heuer moved from 2 register chronographs to 3 register chronographs, with the third recorder providing timing up to 12 hours. This enhanced version of the 12-hour movements were used for triple calendar chronographs, indicating the day, date, and month, as well as moon phase chronographs. Starting in 1949, the brand branched off somewhat from traditional movements and complications with the introduction of the Heuer Solunar, however you would like to say that, which provided things such as high and low tides, moon phases, and also standard chronograph functionalities such as a 12-hour timer. Fishermen, hunters, and other sportsmen use these models for various expeditions and sporting events in general. One particular version, the Mariograph, would occupy Heuer's most rugged, water resistant cases, being produced in the 1970s.
Yeah, and that's the mirrograph that we were talking about with A&F, or Orvis is the other brand.
Yep.
I saw that note on there. That's the other brand that I've seen
Yep.
too.
Yep.
In 1957, because I know we're like 20 minutes in, only about halfway through our history, probably. In 1957, Heuer introduced an entirely new type of watch where the owner can insert colored, interchangeable rings for timing different events. So effectively, just swapping the bezel out.
Hmm.
Each bezel had a different color and incorporated a different scale, as you might imagine. So, for example, an orange scale was marked for boxing rounds, a yellow ring had a countdown scale for yacht racing, and a green scale showed decimal minutes for rally timing. So, again, to go back to the idea of TAG Heuer timing and being extremely prevalent in the world of motorsport and just racing in general, we can see where much of that continued heritage and design actually came from. So,
And in the early 1960s, TAG began forming conventional names for their collections and watches. And a lot of these are going to be names that you guys would probably recognize today. And we'll talk about most of these are comprised from chronographs, such as the Autavia, which I will highlight later in the episode, the Carrera, the Camaro, and the Skipper. In 1962, the Octavia became a wristwatch with a rotating bezel to time motorsports events. And in 63, the Carrera was introduced, taking the name from the Carrera Pan America road race in Mexico. We'll talk about in my highlighting section is a lot of everyday watches that you can wear dressed up, dressed down in sporting events. And again, that's what TAG's really known for, is being sporty but classy at the same time.
yeah, for sure. And in 1968, Heuer introduced the Camaro with a cushion shaped case, which is the brand's first move away from their traditional round cases. The Camaro is popular with racers due to most of those models being offered with a tachometer or tachometer scale. The watch and its cushion shape is certainly said to be a forerunner, even from TAG Heuer themselves, to the square Monaco. Heuer also provided the timing equipment used by the yacht Intrepid when it defended America's Cup off of Newport, Rhode Island. To celebrate the victory, Heuer created a new chronograph with colors matching the Intrepid. The dial displayed blue, orange, and green tones with a 15-minute countdown recorder. This watch, of course, is the Skipper. 8 models of the Skipper would be offered over the next 15 years, and a recent re-release of this model has hit stores very recently with the original colorway on the dial and the sub-dial, so very, very cool to see there. And in 1969, through their sponsorship of Swiss Formula One hero Joe Siffert, Heuer became the first non-automotive logo to appear on a Formula One car. That engagement with F1 would grow in the coming years when Heuer became a sponsor of the Scuderia Ferrari team with Mario Andretti, Jackie Ickx, Niki Lauda, and Clay Regazzoni, as well as Gilles Villeneuve. All of these F1 drivers all wearing Heuer chronographs. Jack Heuer eventually presented each of these with an 18 karat gold Heuer Carrera. And today, they are sponsors of F1 and the Red Bull Racing Team as well. So, to answer that question from earlier, what their involvement is in Formula One today, they are a large sponsor with Red Bull Racing. So, as Max wins a race every single weekend, you'll see him slip on usually a blue
Mm-hmm.
Monaco, but almost always a Monaco and almost
Yeah.
always blue.
Yeah. And in the same year, there was a joint venture to create the world's first automatic chronograph movement available in worldwide markets with the Caliber 11. Following this, the automatic Octavia, Carrera, and Monaco were introduced in March of 1969. The 3 models were powered by Heuer's first automatic movements, but it was actually the new Monaco that captured the world's attention. Monaco combined an edgy square case with a midnight blue or charcoal dials to create a chronograph that would be noticed. For the movie Le Mans, Hollywood star Steve McQueen wanted to follow the style of his racing hero Joe Siffert, who was an ambassador for Heuer at the time, actually. McQueen selected the Monaco chronograph for his wrist, the Heuer chronograph patch for his racing suit, actually, in the movie. The bold combination brought worldwide attention to Heuer's new chronograph, and the final version of the Monaco, which is today's collector they call the Dark Lord, incorporated the military look of the 1970s using a black dial and a black coated case.
Yeah, and to wrap up history section for us today on TAG, in 1983, TAG Heuer responded to the new paradigm in the world of watches with a new collection, the Formula One collection.
Mm-hmm.
The TAG Heuer Formula One offered the same style of bright colors, plastic cases, and simple quartz movements from watches around this time. True to its heritage, the Formula One had a 200-meter depth rating and bezel marked in minutes. Yes, this was a dive watch. I am not exactly sure why it was titled the Formula One, and this was their first big movement into the dive watch world. However, in the early 90s, TAG moved their marketing efforts upmarket with brand ambassadors from F1, world champions Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna. And in 1996, they relaunched the Carrera following the style of the original 1964 model in almost every detail. The Monaco was also reissued in 1998 with an all black dial. And in 2004, TAG Heuer introduced the Aquaracer collection with roots going back to Heuer's first dive watches in the early 80s that we just talked about, the F1. So, yes, a more adequate collection name would be the Aquaracer. Thank you for updating that tag. The first gen Aqua Racers offered a 300-meter depth reading, while the next generation, which was introduced in 2009, increased this to 500 meters. And in 2010, TAG Heuer released its first in-house chronograph movement, which was the Caliber 1887. The Caliber 1887 is an integrated movement featuring a column wheel and the same style of oscillating pinion that Heuer patented themselves in the year 1887. This movement powered a new generation of Carrera chronographs and would serve as the basis for the Heuer 01 in-house movement that we have seen in many of their watches today. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to David for our first watch.
Yeah, and just jumping straight from there, we're actually going to talk about the Aqua Racer, which I think this and the Monaco are probably the most recognizable outside, in the wild, as we like to call it. The Aqua Racer, I see a lot of guys I know have it, and honestly, to me, I think we'll talk about this more, but to me, it brings a lot of similarities from the S&P 300 from Omega, especially from afar. You can kind of see the similarities. Of course, the S&Ps were out by the time they came out with the Aqua Racers. So I don't know if there was any, what's the word I'm thinking of? Any inspiration from the two that were made, or was it just two completely separate things and then they morphed into looking more and more similar? Again, as I know me and Brett talk about all the time, you can be praised for looking similar, you can be bashed for looking similar to other popular watches. So again, I'm not going to say this is good or bad, but I do like the look of S&P 300s, and I like the look of the Aqua Racers. So again, the Aqua Racer was originally released in the 1970s. The case material and diameter of these are going to be stainless steel at 40 millimeters with a water resistance of 200 meters. Most of these, I would say a little over half of these are going to be quartz. They also have automatic movements in a lot of these. You're going to be probably around $2,300 if you want a quartz watch. And if you want an automatic watch, is really not a bad step up, in my opinion, $500 to
Right.
2,800. So it's not a big jump there. I would obviously, if you can afford it, I would like the looks of just automatic watches. I think they look classier with the glide. But you can also get a few of these watch versions with diamond hour markers for around 3.5K.
Yeah, that's a weird. It's like a lot for quartz, and then yeah, like you said, it's only 500 up for the
Mm-hmm.
automatic. It's like yeah, just
And the automatic,
yeah,
again, only 500 up
just
could
get the
be
automatic.
because the power reserve is only 38 hours for their automatics. Of course, quartz watches, you'll have years worth of battery
Yeah,
power. But so it isn't much of a power reserve when it comes to their automatic watches. So that is something to be aware of. But a lot of times, I feel like TAG, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like TAG is the quintessential, like, is one of those first luxury watches that you buy.
yeah,
Um, they're just, everybody knows of them. Everybody knows of Rolex, but can't afford Rolex. But everybody knows of TAG. Everybody's heard tags in movies left and right. I
yeah.
mean, they were in the new Baywatch movie. It was funny. I don't know if y'all have
Wait,
seen that
was it
new
really?
movie with Zach. Yeah, with Zach Efron, the
Oh, nice.
Oscar, which the guy that plays Oscar from The Office was a character in there, and he was balled out, persuaded to do something by being given a tag or your watch. And so it was funny, the marketing placement that they had in that movie. But these watches are in media today, so they're very well known, and I feel like you can get a lot of these for fairly cheap, especially aftermarket. I actually know a coworker of mine that he got one of these, I think brand new, the watch. It was a quartz watch, chronograph, brand new. It was like $1,500,
Damn.
$1,700, and he bought it from secondhand from a lady for $600. He negotiated it down to, and I was like, I
Oh
would pay,
yeah, you told me
yeah,
that story. There
yeah,
was
I
like,
would,
oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would pay 600, I guess, for a very nice chronograph, black
Yeah.
dial, black bezel, tag. I want to pay $2,000. Yeah, of course. It started, I think it was
Okay.
right under 2 grand, 15, 1700, somewhere in there. I know it was in the 15 to,
Okay.
yeah, 1900. And again, it was unworn, which again should show you the value. And I mean, he negotiated it. So she wanted, I think, a grand right off the bat, but got her down to 600. It was tell the story. It was a divorcee watch. It was her ex-husband's watch that they bought and got divorced about a month later. And so she was like, I'm getting rid of this damn watch. So he was like, I'll give you 600 and take it from you right now. So that's what happened. But I mean, again, a lot of these watches, especially the quartz, are not going to hold up in value. So I would not recommend buying these straight from the website or anything personally. But that being said, I was doing a lot of research on, of course, the Aquaracer and the Autavia that we'll talk about. But the just being on my laptop, I was getting pop-ups for, like, I have a discount code finder in my search engine. It was giving me like, say, $500, buy an Aquaracer now. And so I was like, man,
Wow.
I'm getting discount codes for $500 off these. And then I think the Octavia I'll talk about as well. I think I got $1,000 offer off on that. It was like, discount code that they're just
Wow.
offering. And so, I mean, it's very interesting. A lot of these are being offered at discounts, even
Did
online.
did you look at anything? I didn't look like aftermarket, but did you look at any of these aftermarket? Like, what does a Monaco go for? What does a Aqua Racer go for? Because now that I'm thinking about it, like, I mean, they're not like the most expensive watches in the world, and we'll talk about the other ones being, 5K, 7K, and so on. But I have to imagine that a tag on the aftermarket is not holding more than
No,
50 or 60% of its value, absolute
how
tops.
much is a Monaco going new? You said between 5 and 7?
No, no, no. Monaco will be a little bit higher, 7,500, 8K, something like that
Yeah.
minimum.
So I'm looking, yeah. Joma Shop has a tag Monaco Lefty automatic for 5,800. eBay
Nice.
has it for 6,200. There's one on eBay, it's a small for
Okay.
1,900. So,
Okay.
a
So
lot of
obviously
these
they're
on
going to be different years and stuff.
eBay's mostly where you're going to find it cheaper, and those are around $1,900 tops.
Wow.
Obviously, Joma Shop and all that, you're going to be more just because it's a big business. But if you're buying it straight from a seller, yeah, you're going to be under
Let's
sub 2 grand.
let's talk about that again. Let's add that to the movement discussion at the very end. Let's talk about some aftermarket buying habits and all that kind of stuff because I want to
Yeah.
pick your brain on that.
Yeah, but anyway, so just wrapping up here, the Aqua Racer, I think is a great watch. It's very cool. The minute and the second hand is actually going to be a different loom than the hour hand and all the hour markers. So the hour markers are going to be the green loom, kind of like a Rolex. You would think what that loom looks like, or a Tudor, and then the minute and the second hand markers are actually a blue loom thing. So think Manta loom, something along those lines. So it's two tone when it comes to the loom. I've actually never seen that before on any watch. So seeing that was very cool. They have sunburst dials, very good. I mean, a good quality watch. $2,800 for an automatic tag. I mean, if you like tag and you just, again, if you are a one and done guy, which my coworker is, he wanted one watch and he spends his money hunting and doing other things. He doesn't spend his money on watches. But I mean, you're in sales and you need to have a nice watch on, and so he has his tag on. And so if you're a one and done watch guy, I think this would be a great brand that everybody would recognize, that everybody thinks highly. That's really not watch people really think highly of this brand. And it's not too flashy. So I think this would be a great one and done watch if that was what you were looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a definitely in the do it all category. Unlike the second watch that we're going to talk about, my first watch is the Monaco. And I don't mean that in a negative way one bit. I
Mm.
absolutely love the Monaco. So original release date, like we mentioned earlier, in case you weren't paying attention, original release date for the Monaco, it was 1969 with the release of the automatic caliber 11. Their case material of today's Monaco, and for the record, I'm just going to be talking about the $7,500, $7,800 model. Monaco. So nothing with ceramic, no tourbillons, none of that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
stainless steel, 39 millimeter in diameter. Interesting to see TAG use that. So they're using a diagonal measurement of 39 millimeters. Their case thickness 14.3, a little bit on the chunkier side, with 100 meters of water resistance. Again, the TAG calibre 11 should come as no surprise. That movement beating at 4 hertz, 28,800 beats per hour. 40-hour power reserve. Not going to see much more than that with TAG. Sadly, one of the big gripes, I guess, that I have, and just really kind of like one of the only ones about the watches from a technical specification standpoint. Power reserve is super low. But the cost there, like I said, starting 75, 7,800 are going to be the
Pretty
entry
high.
level
Yeah.
models. And then, going up to like 11K for some of the more, kind of one-off versions, thinking black, ceramic, different materials and such.
Yeah.
Obviously, some cool things to note here. The first square waterproof chronograph in the world. I don't know how many square waterproof chronographs that there are in the world. I'm sure there's not many of them, but cool nonetheless, I suppose. Worn by Steve McQueen, the king of cool, like David talked about in the film Le Mans. Won the iconic watch award actually at last year's Grand Prix of Horology in Geneva. Won the iconic watch award. So yeah, it's no slouch. I really like it. I think it is very iconic, obviously. We talked about like pre-watches and pre-buying and owning any of these watches that David and I have, or looking at them even online the way that we do. TAG was just, it still is one of those brands, obviously, that you see everywhere, or in a lot of places, at least in motorsport. It was the same for me. So
Yeah.
the F1 Heritage, like, I was thinking about it 2 days ago, after doing some of this research, and everyone here probably has heard the story from our TISO episode. It was my first watch, and I was really torn because at the time I was looking at TAG Heuer. But I was like, there's no way that my first like big boy watch is going to be 2,500. I was looking at Carreras, just a three-hander Carrera classic, dressy, sporty, type of a watch. But again, you're looking like north of 2K for a new one. The thought had never occurred to me to look aftermarket. So these were like very like early days and years for me. But TAG was like that prevalent in my mind. Obviously, I went with a $600 watch, not a $2,000 watch. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show that it was like a forerunner, and I was so into it. So yeah, I mean, and the Monaco is like in a class of its own. I mean, it's it's named after Monaco. It's not Vegas or Miami. Any of these new fake bullshit street circuits. All right, this is the street circuit of all street circuits. It's Monaco, people. Okay, it's like
What do you
motorsport heritage through and through. It's
What do you
awesome.
think about the price, 7.5 to 11K? Do you
A
think that's
lot.
pricey or?
I mean, a lot of their watches, it's interesting because their watches fall, I feel like, in one of two categories. They're actually really, really attainable, or they're a
Yeah.
little bit on the pricier side. Like
Yeah.
the Aquaracer, the Carreras, those are on the cheaper side.
When
They're
I
just at
think of
2,500.
TAG, when I think of TAG, I think of a $2,000 to $3,000 watch. I don't think of a
Yeah,
$10,000 watch. That's
but
just me.
but it's the Monaco. It's like, so I think the Monaco. I think they
But what does
price
the
it that
Monaco
way.
have internally that the rest don't, other than that it's square and it's named the Monaco?
Well, I mean, it's a chronograph for one, so it's got additional
But I mean,
complications
so
if you're
is
talking about the
Carreras and
diver.
stuff. I mean, a lot
Well,
of them
well,
have.
some of the Carreras do, but the
Yeah.
Carreras that
But I
don't,
mean,
the
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 ones
three
that
handers.
the chronographs that, you know, are Carreras are normally around 3K max. I just think 11. I would not spend $10,000 on a tag. I don't know. I'd spend
Yeah.
$3,000 on that maybe, but I don't. Me personally, they're different, but you're spending 11K on a watch unless you're just an F1 fanatic, Brett.
Well, but those are like
Then
anniversary editions.
yeah,
But I mean, again, I mean, I don't want.
even
I'm not.
7K. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to defend it like all the way home, but I mean, yeah, like those are anniversary pieces. Most people are not going to be buying those. Most people are going to be buying the 75 or the 7,800
and the reason they can
model
probably do
variants.
that as well is because they pay Max Verstappen millions of dollars to wear that
Yeah.
watch, after wins. And if they didn't, I'm sure, that's just they're trying to shove it down your throat, like
You know what?
Rolex has too.
That's actually kind of a good point. I wouldn't be shocked if Tag looked at that watch and said, this is a square chronograph. That's not the most popular watch design in the world. Like they know that. Everyone knows it.
Mhm.
I wonder if they almost look at this watch and they say, to your point exactly, we're gonna charge the consumer a premium because this is like almost a novelty watch. If you're not a
Oh, yeah.
motorsport fan, again, most people in the world are not square chronograph watch fans, or there'd be a lot more brands making square
It's
chronographs.
not even just like
So
the
maybe
square
that's what it
because the
is.
Santos is square. The Monaco is very stark. It's like a stark square, I guess is how you could say it. It's bold. It's a bold watch.
Well,
And
it's
it's very
because the actual
different. Yeah.
case is actually square. The Santos dial is square, but the
Yeah.
case is not. The
It
case
starts
has the
rounding,
little
yeah.
flanged like little edges where it makes these
Mhm.
little stair
Yeah, the Monaco
step
is
shaped
start
design.
it's a start square. It
Yeah.
stands out.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean that's a really good point. Like I said from you, I mean maybe Tag do think of it that way. They're charging a premium because it's a limited consumer base, but
Oh,
it's such
yeah.
an iconic watch. Like they're never going to get rid of it.
No. As long as F1
There's
still as long
yeah.
as racing's still
I was gonna
big.
say, I mean, racing in general, just as long
Yeah.
as fans of racing, because it's clearly not
It's
everyone's flavor. But if you're a motorsport fan, you're like, hell yeah, I'd drop 7K on a Monaco. Me
yeah.
personally, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd buy a new one just because it's like it's like an Omega. I wouldn't buy a new Speedy either. Like they don't
Yeah.
hold their value. I mean,
Yeah.
I would buy a new Rolex because it makes financial sense. I'd buy a new Tudor even. I mean, Tudors are even holding their value. Tags,
Mhm.
not so much. Omegas, often not so much. So I probably wouldn't buy a $7,500 brand new one, but I'd definitely spend 5K, 4,500 for a used one.
Yeah.
To add something really traditional and with a lot of heritage and something totally new to my collection,
Yeah.
you know?
The racing to
Yeah.
me, kind of shifting gears here. It's crazy to me. Tag is so known for racing. There's so many watch companies that are known for racing,
Yeah.
but they're really you think of Tag, you're like, well, okay, what's Tag do? They're known for like racing, and they're so attached to F1 in general. You would think, okay, well they must do the time. No, it's Rolex. I'm like, okay, then why are they so big attached to F1? It's funny to me how there's so many watch brands that are attached to the different
Yeah.
racings, but really most of the time the ones that keep time is most of the time Rolex. But
Well, Rolex
Tag.
now. Yeah.
Longines is known a lot with racing, and
Yeah.
all of these Omega, all of these watch brands are known so much. They're trying to all attach themselves to some sort of
Yeah.
timing event, but really, what is the one that times most of these is
Well,
Rolex.
in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah, that
I
back
don't know
then was
world
different,
economics, but
obviously. Yeah,
I just imagine Rolex didn't have the stranglehold on the
no,
watch market back then the way that they do now,
yeah,
and that's when companies like Longines and like Tag,
is why it's this.
that's why they were timekeepers for all these events, and then just as time progressed and went on, Rolex just became it's like Amazon,
Yeah,
it's like how the hell is Thursday Night Football in America? Like you have to have a $12 a month Prime subscription to watch Thursday Night Football now. Like
yeah,
I bet there's boomers that are looking at us like this is fucking bullshit. But
yeah.
it's
But
like
everybody has a freaking
yeah,
Amazon
and that's
account,
what
so
happens when you
yeah.
get these big conglomerates. So, um, but
Yeah,
I
it's just
mean,
crazy to me, and it's funny to me that you would think, okay, Rolex is so they time everything. You would think all these racers would wear Rolexes afterwards, but they go back to Tag,
see
and
that's funny.
those bitches do
That's
not wear
funny.
a single tag outside of when they are getting paid to wear a tag. They're wearing Vacherons
No, but
and
I mean they're paying.
tags, and yeah, but
Yeah,
they're
but I
paying them $1
mean,
million to wear it a
yeah,
season, if not more.
yeah. I mean, even like on their gloves, like the Mercedes team, their watch sponsor is IWC.
Hmm.
And even on their gloves, you'll
That's
see
a cool
when they
brand as
make a
well.
right turn, the top of their left glove has an IWC watch like designed onto the glove. So they're
Hmm.
even marketing that. It's all just marketing. Like
Yeah,
Rolex doesn't actually
but
sponsor any
but
team, so there's no driver
IWC
that could even
roll,
wear a
yeah,
Rolex. You
yeah,
got
IWC
IWC, Tag,
Rolex.
Richard Mill. They sponsor both Ferrari and McLaren. So Richard Mill is actually on more risk than anybody.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Richard Mill,
Mm,
Rolex, but they're not being worn.
yep,
IWC,
yep,
those are all at a very high standard when it comes to watch, just brand superiority. And then there's Tag.
yeah.
And it's funny to me the drop off between IWC, which is probably by far the lowest of those, but still, $10,000 to $20,000 for a watch. I mean, they're huge, very big name brand,
Yeah.
very expensive. And then you drop all the way to TAG. But I mean, shit,
Yeah.
with a Monaco being 10 grand, I guess you really don't drop. It's just you don't get the quality movement. But money's
Yeah,
money, baby. Money talks. Have you
it's
have
just
you
one of
heard the
those
AC/DC
things.
song?
Yeah. Just say it's just like one of those things. I think when your heritage is so strong like that, I mean, like we've talked about like why is the Spirit Zulu time so expensive from Longines? Like
Yeah,
what is so
that's
amazing
even
about
more
that?
ridiculous.
Exactly. It's like what's so special about that? Well, it's Longines and they've got all the history to back it. I mean, I don't think in Tag's case, it's like, yeah, you obviously are taking a huge step down when you come down from Richard Mill to anything. I mean, Richard Mill to even Rolex.
Would you
Like,
rather
it's probably
have
harder to get a Richard Mill.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
imagine
Oh,
it's
Richard
way more.
Mill's
I was gonna
80
say
grand,
way
all
more
of them, yeah.
costly,
Yeah.
and way harder to get. So
And
even down
ugly
to
as sin. I hate Richard
so
Mills.
ugly, but you know what? But to that point, see, that's the thing that I was kind of getting at is like they're new kids on the block. They effectively have zero heritage from like a horological standpoint.
But
They would
who
have
do
no
you
history
know
section, but their new
Yeah.
stuff, they make groundbreaking stuff. Have you seen the
Oh, I mean, yeah, they're
ultra
crazy.
thin watch? It's like 1.4 millimeters thick. This
Yeah.
automatic, and it had some like additional complications to it. It's like they go beyond the limit. And then
Yeah.
Tag is like, well, we put the fucking crown on the watch. It's like we've been here.
Yeah.
So I, like, however the brand evolved, and obviously Tag was bought by the fashion brand with the David Arnault and
Mhm.
his family. I mean, they're the richest family in the entire world, the
Yeah.
Arnauts, and that company owns like Tag, Louis Vuitton, Prada, I think. So they're just this big like fashion company. So it also has been mismanaged. For 20 years, Tag was like under the umbrella of these French billionaires and
Yeah.
was sort of treated like this sort of this kind of like redheaded stepchild of a company. Um,
Yeah.
and now one of the Arnault sons has been appointed CEO of Tag, and then I think the other
Mhm.
was appointed CEO of Louis Vuitton. And lo and behold, the Louis Vuitton guy, he's like, well, I'm going to flip Louis on its head. We're not going to make fashion watches. We're going to make like real badass watches.
No, and they do,
So I
yeah. I mean,
don't, yeah. So
we've
I
got
don't know
some
now.
pictures on our Instagram from new Louis Vuitton
Yeah.
watches.
And
Yeah.
and that's what I was telling, you and Steven that day. So it's like, I think maybe Tag will maybe go back to the right direction. That's part
Yeah.
of a broader conversation is like the last 20, 30 years under that company. It's like, is that largely to blame why they sort of went astray and they weren't popular, like they lost market share and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, but they do have the staying power.
Yeah.
That's what they've got going for them. So
Yeah.
interesting discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, let's stay on track here.
Yeah.
Talking about the next watch is the Octavia, which I said I would speak about. This is kind of cool because in 2017, Octavia was re-released after a fan vote selected the design and style of the new edition, and they hosted events in I think 10 cities around the world showcasing this watch. And others from the Tag Museum. So it was kind of fans brought this watch back. And again, it's very simple. It's a great watch, blue and black bezel. So, you have your Batman look, I guess you could say. But, it stands out. It's just a good everyday. This would be another everyday watch if you're just looking for a chronograph. Or I'm sorry, a GMT. And so this was originally released in 1962, and then of course, like I said, relaunched in 2017. The case material and diameter is stainless steel again, is 42 millimeters, so it's wider, but it doesn't fit as big. Aqua racers fit big for being 40. 42, it's thinner. It's just a smaller profile. Most of y'all understand what we mean by that. When a 42 can fit very differently, but depending on the watch case thickness and all of that. Water resistance is going to be 100 meters, so you still get, I think, pretty good water resistance for this. I don't want to say this price point because it is pretty pricey, but this watch that you would think a GMT, you wouldn't think would have that, is the Caliber 7 Cox GMT with 4 hertz, and this actually has 50 hours of power reserve. So again, once you get around over 2 days, I'm fine with it. Honestly, once you get around, I'd say 42, 45 hours, that's more doable. I just thought 38 hours was ridiculously low. But 50 hours of power reserve. And you're going to be paying around 4K for this watch. So, with that being said, I don't know if you would want this watch for that price, this is another aftermarket, I think, steal that you could get around, $15 to $2,000, $1,500, $2,000. Again, like I said, the Autavia online was giving out discounts. My laptop was saying, "Hey, here's a discount code. You can get it out discounts for $500 to $1,000." So again, maybe they're realizing this and doing the old Amazon trick where we mark it up to mark it down. I'm not sure, but I thought it was very interesting that a lot of the tags I was seeing on my laptop was offering discounts. But again, it's well shaped. It's simple. It has a orange GMT hand, and the date is at the 6 o'clock window. So you're gonna, just a very simple design and layout. Oyster style bracelet, a pretty big crown, surprisingly. And I think Brett has something he wants to say here. So go ahead. What does this watch remind you of?
So it not only reminds me of the Longines Spirit Zulu time, very similar design.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about the Autavia nor the Spirit Zulu to go down that rabbit hole if there's some copycat going on here. So unless you do, I'll leave that one for another day. What I was going to say though,
Coincidence, I'm sure.
very similar design as you pointed out, and what I thought was interesting. What's the cost on the Autavia? I know you were
It's around
four.
4,000, depending on
Okay.
which. I can look it up exactly, but yeah, around 4,000. Keep going.
Okay. And so what I was going to say is it's interesting that TAG are offering the Autavia, which again, I'm telling you people, if you haven't done the side by side,
$4,500.
okay, 4,500. So
Yeah, we'll post these two watches side by side for y'all to see the day of this release. So
it's only $1,400 more than the Spirit Zulu from Longines, but this is at least a cost certified movement,
big.
and like,
And I know that's your hatred of the Zulu is the movement in it, because
well,
the
it's
Zulu
the
looks
combination.
good. Yeah,
It's the
the Zulu
combination of
looks
how
good
much it cost and how like
for the movement. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just interesting that like I mean they've got both impressive history just in a different path. Like they've gone different paths,
Oh yeah,
with
big
their
time.
history. Longines being more involved with aviation and some other timing, and then obviously TAG with its motorsport. But just interesting to see how
Which one do
similar
you like better, look wise, side by
from a.
side? Again, we'll post this on our story for you guys to see what we choose. But
I would
which one do
like
you
to.
like better?
I would like to see really quickly. I wish we had a Jamie. We need a
Yeah, I
Jamie in
know.
here.
The
Um,
Octavia, from what I see on their website, only comes in the blue dial,
okay.
orange GMT hour, and Octavia on the, written on the dial is in orange. And this is automatic chronometer, which is in white with the hour with the date window both
Okay.
at the 6, which same thing with the Zulu time. I
Oh, I
believe the Zulu
see.
time only comes with a green bezel black dial with gold.
No, the Zulu actually has
Or does it have
quite a lot
multiple?
of variations. Yeah. So
Okay,
there's
gotcha.
actually, wait, no, you might be right. There's a blue dial with blue dial, blue bezel, and yeah, I think you're actually right. Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. So there's a black dial with white markers. There's a black dial with the gilt gold colored markers, and there's the blue dial white marker.
Yeah.
And then TAG, yeah, only has the blue and white. So very similar to the Longines blue white, except the bezel is bicolored with the black blue Batman Batgirl
Yeah.
coating to it or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, aesthetically, like they look nearly identical. It's crazy
Because
how
they
much they
both
look.
also have the Arabic numbers on, so 12, 1,
Yeah,
2,
so
3,
there's
not
Arabic
not hour
numbers, the date
markers.
at the 6, there's marking right above the date. I like that the tag has a framed date window, makes it look a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
But the bracelet on the Longines looks nicer. So I mean, I don't know. If you
Definitely
put
looks
them
higher
side by
quality.
side, yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
you held them side by side and you could feel and try on for yourself, knowing that one is $1,400 less, but with maybe a lesser movement. It's yeah,
Which
it's
again, a
crazy
lot
how
of
much
people
they look alike.
don't know about. And I feel like Longines um and Tag are pretty evenly when it comes to brand. A lot of people know Longines. Tag's definitely more, I guess, widely popular, just brand name. But I feel like quality wise, they're both pretty even when it comes to quality of watches. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really good even matchup when it comes to look. I think the Spirit Zulu time looks kind of like the Hamilton Murph, a little bit too. Imagine
Yeah.
the Octavia and the Hamilton Murph had a baby. That would be the Spirit Zulu time.
Yeah, it's
Because the green and the
that is
blacks
true.
and the
Yeah.
gold all matched in with the
The
Octavia's
the Zulu looks
dial and
like a
bezel.
the Zulu looks like a modern version of the Murph, whereas the
Yeah.
Murph looks like when they created it back in 2012 or whenever that movie
Yeah.
released. That was maybe meant to look like it was like a 1990s or maybe an 80s field watch or something. It was definitely was very meant to look very classic field
Yeah.
watch, and the Zulu looks like that too. It's just it's a modern packaging of that.
God, if that I really and just answering the question I asked you, I like the Zulu look better than the Octavia. I like the 5 stars on the
I do
Zulu's
like the
dial.
5 star.
I like it's a militaristic kind of look. It kind of
Yep.
looks a little military watch. God, if this watch was 2 grand or 1500, a
Yeah, I
normal
know.
price. If this watch costs as much as a Hydra Conquest from Longines cost, I would buy it. I
And
think it's a very cool
the
watch.
blue dial is pretty slick too. I mean,
Yeah,
I like the blue. I know the black and kind of gilt with the little green touches on it. I know
yeah,
that's got its own flair going for it. But
yeah,
for my money, like that blue dial is nice,
yeah.
nice. Yeah,
Anyway, so moving on. What's the last watch you got here? Which this is a watch again that I think kind of like the Aqua
yeah,
Racer, everybody will know.
yeah. This watch is cool, and honestly, like even though I love the Monaco, I'm probably more excited to talk about this watch. So, talking about the TAG Heuer Carrera collection here. And specifically, my specifications I'm going to give are for the reference number CBS2212.FC6535.
Say
And for
that three
anyone,
times fast.
exactly. And for anyone keeping track of that, that model is going to be the new glass box sort of design. So this is the newly released in 2023 from TAG, sort of reintroduced,
Yeah,
brought to life from classic designs of the past. So glassbox model, original release date for the Carrera as a collection though in 1963, with the Carrera Panamericana race down in Mexico, like David talked about earlier.
yeah,
Going to be stainless steel material, 39 millimeter without a bezel. So there are options with bezels, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But 39 mil without the bezel. Case thickness, it's going to vary. Water resistance, 100 meters. Caliber in this is going to be the in-house caliber TH20-00. Vibrations, 4 hertz again, 28,800. Power reserve of 80 in this TH20-00. So extremely nice. It's nice to see a 4 hertz with 80 hours of power reserve. Don't see that happening that often, to be quite honest. The cost, I misspoke earlier in the Monaco collection. There are no Monaco tourbillons. The tourbillons do exist in the Carrera lineup, though. This is kind of where TAG have a lot of fun, a lot of variety, and I think it's hands down. This is the collection. Like,
yeah,
if a person is going to spend money on a TAG Heuer watch and they're going to get one of them, and if you're
yeah.
not a racing buff and you don't want the Monaco, or if you're just not a racing buff, then I would say steer clear of the Monaco. Come to the Carrera because it's got something for honestly like everybody.
Everything. Yeah, I feel
This,
like most of the tags you see have Carrera on them.
yeah, yeah,
Like
most of
when
them
you go
are.
into the store, most of them are Carreras.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Carreras and Aqua Racers for sure.
yeah.
Those are the two. Like if you stumble upon a tag dealer, that's going to be what you're going to see. You're going to see a
Mm-hmm.
ton of Aqua Racers, bright colors, and then yeah, a bunch of Carreras as well. So yeah, pricing on this all the way down at the lowest level version of this complication wise is going to be basically a 3-hander. They have a 3-hander with just a date window, and then they also have 3-handers with a date and day function.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those read at the 3 o'clock position, so it's pretty clean, pretty clean cut rather. Design, very classic design on that 3-hander. To step up from that, you have some models like I am particularly interested in and talking about right now, which are like the glass box design. So these are named for just the dome shaping of that crystal, calling it a glass box. The bezel sits within that. So 3-dial chronograph here with kind of this sort of ghost effect looking kind of small seconds at the 6 o'clock. That sub register actually has the date window sitting within it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's not recessed and textured like the sub dials and sub registers at the 3 and the 6 that are the actual chronometer functions. So I think that's kind of cool. you don't really see that a lot today with chronographs. You just don't really see where, dials are played off of one another. Zenith probably have like the best, they've got like the best example of this with honestly all of their El Primero chronographs, where they've got 3 different colors shaded in on those subdials. So that's probably the best expression and example of messing with subdials. But this is a really cool like runner up to me, to be quite honest. If I was going to buy a Carrera tomorrow, hands down, that's going to be the one that I'm going to get. We're looking like 6-7K, like really finely designed dressy sport watch with some heritage behind it. But to wrap up my quick tangent here, what I was going to say about the variety in the collection, like you've got with and without bezels, with and without subdials. So there's not obviously the 3-hander non-chronograph functions that we talked about, gold, rose gold, in-house automatic calibers, in-house tourbillon calibers, plenty of colors. They do actually have some examples of, I even posted one here for David to look at. They have like this green dial that comes on a bracelet that is very Daytona-ish looking. The bezel tachometer is very similarly laid out. Obviously, I know that there's only so many ways that you can do a chronograph bezel with a tachometer, but very similar to a Daytona. So I will admit that. But a lot of them,
they have a
man,
lot of other ones that aren't. So
yeah,
I think
and
I think the blue dial with the 2 sub dials probably is the best just all around looking watch, especially when it comes to being their own. It's because it's that the one that looks like a Daytona's. Honestly, I don't know if it's just because we're looking at a green dial one. It almost looks even more busy than Daytona's, but I feel like the blue subset with the 2 subset dials, I think that's just more. It threads that needle perfectly with dress and sporty at the same time because
dude,
it's all under the
it's so
glass
nice.
dome. Yeah,
Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, like that's it. Like I think the bezel being under the sapphire with
yeah,
that kind of like step dial, and if you look at
yeah.
like some of these like down the barrel shots, like looking down the wrist, like you can read all of it too.
Oh yeah.
And that's another part of the nickname glass box, is because you can read it from like all angles. Sometimes you have a dome sapphire, and that will definitely distort some of the smaller font where it's often says like Swiss made, or like I have a Grand Seiko that's got
Yeah.
the actual caliber number down there, and if you look oddly, you can and cannot see it. But then the other version of the glass box is a little bit less common, but I enlarged it here, is a black dial that's a little bit more vintage. Kind of has this like hidden like date window at the 12 o'clock, like
Yeah.
under the double indices. So like I didn't really see any pictures of this when this watch first released. They were all of the blue dial.
Yeah.
This one, unlike the blue dial, again, vintage, more design. The small seconds subdial is the same. It's recessed in texture just like the other sub registers are. So and it's got like a perforated leather strap to it. So it's a really cool, like vintage racing looking
Kind of racing
chronograph.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a cool racing one, but it's brand new, obviously. And then the blue one is really dressy. So that's the end of my tangent. I think hands down the best line by TAG. You've got plenty of history if you're worried about that, or if you're interested in that. There's plenty of cool story to go along with how these watches came to be, and yeah, like there's some damn good looking watches too, man.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think even before I really started paying attention to TAG as a kid, honestly, I thought the name of the watch brand was TAG Heuer Carrera. Because I was like, the Carrera is the most popular line. I mean, they're everywhere, and because of the variation, and I think they're great. I love the name Carrera. It's a cool name.
Yeah.
So I think it stands on
good
its
car,
own
too.
the best. Yeah, too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's TAG's own thing. Plenty of variety for everybody, a little bit of flavor for everybody. Yeah, it's a great collection. I'm gonna go check out some TAGs this week, buddy. I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of talked, earlier about a couple things. Um, yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, buying on the aftermarket, um, like eBay. I mean, I've never bought on eBay or even Chrono 24 before. Um, like how sure are we about these like authenticity things? Like I guess that's what always worries me is that I'm looking at a
Yeah,
watch that's just a great fake or something. I don't
I
know how
know a
many
lot of
fake
people
tags
that,
there are
yeah,
or fake whatever there are,
none.
but it just always worries me.
Well, unless you go Chinatown. Um,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I know a lot of people that buy eBay and have done eBay, and eBay does a bunch of guarantees, especially when it comes to Rolexes and different brands. So it's not like it's not the old eBay of 2010 where it was,
Mm,
hey, good luck, you're buying it, and that's it. So they have eBay guarantees and stuff that they'll make sure. So I'm not too worried about that. When it comes to Chrono and Joma Shop, I've I know my family, we bought Breitlings and stuff from Joma Shop, and it's been very easy and very authenticated and blah blah blah. I've never bought a Rolex from there. Again, you're always going to run the risk. I mean, as well, we have a great aftermarket when it comes to Rolex, or really any watch guy. I mean, he'll get us anything we want for a great price, and so I think having that is the most valuable thing when it comes to watch collecting. You got to have a guy that you know in person. Find that person. Don't just trust ADs and stuff too, because I mean they're going to want to sell you new, and they don't give a crap about the value of it. They'll lie straight to your face and tell, "Oh man, these things hold value. Who would want to buy a?" What was the thing everybody says? God, when a couple years ago when we really got into this heavily with watches, why would you Rolexes when Rolexes were peaking? Why would you
yeah.
want to pay for a used car and pay more for it? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then I'm thinking about 3 years later, still ain't got a watch from them. Son of a bitch, I should have bought the used car because I wouldn't
Yeah.
have the car. Well, I'd rather have the dang car. So they're going to sit there and try to make you just wait on the fishing hook for something that'll never come, or doesn't come from many people. Will never come for
Yeah.
the normal person that walks in there once every 6 months and
Right.
talks to the guy, not the guy that,
Right.
sucks up every
Dropping
week.
50K a
Oh,
year and
God,
gets
man.
one
Bro,
or two Rolexes a year.
I hate people like that now. I'm getting cynical where the people that sit there and that's their life is to suck up to some guy that sells watches at an AD.
Just
Like,
like the
make a true,
nonstop.
yeah, whatever. I don't
Sorry,
know.
sorry.
Don't get
I don't
me
want to cut you off.
started.
Go,
Yeah, don't
go.
get me started. Make the true friendship, and sure, yeah, it'll help. But I mean, we know many ADs, and we have a lot that they don't even ads are at the point where they don't even want to make friends with new people like that because they're just nonstop getting
Just
blasted
getting
by fake
hounded.
friends. That understanding, when that time comes to get a watch, that is how I want to get a watch, not because I sat there and acted like I cared about some dude's life for a year, and then
Yeah.
boom, you get a watch, and okay, buy it aftermarket. Don't be crazy. I'm to the point now where I'm not buying new unless it's a Rolex, more than
Yeah.
likely. you know like you
I'm
said,
honestly,
why do
I'm
you
right
want to
there at
get
the same.
burned?
Yeah.
And again, with our guy, and I know, bro, you haven't bought from him, but obviously, when you come to one and buy a luxury watch, let me know. Speed is not just Rolexes. Get
Yeah.
a guy that can get you anything. Hey, I want a Speedy, or hey, I want this Breitling, or blah blah blah. Then yeah, that's when I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
No,
The
it's a
world of
conversation that people have to have. I
watches.
mean, if you yeah, exactly stolen out of my mouth. In the world of watches, if you want to live in that world and play in that world and collect watches, like you want more than 3 watches, I give somebody wants to buy 3 watches, go buy them new. Like you're like if you've just wanted a Rolex like your whole life, that was a status symbol, or your dad had one, or you wanted a Speedy because you were really into NASA and space when you were a kid, like go get it new and just be done with it. But if you're gonna be flipping watches like nonstop, um,
Or if you just
I mean, it's like,
if you don't like pissing your money away, because that's what you're
yeah,
doing. For the majority of these, I can find you any other than Rolex. I can
yeah,
find you any watch you want to find used. Speedies, there's a million of them out there. Tudor Black Bay
and I
58s,
don't
there's a
know,
million of them out there. Why would you pay an extra $4,000 when you can still get them used from a wreckable source? Now, Rolex and
yeah,
stuff are harder because most of them are not wreckable, and you don't even know the person from Adam. And half the time, they don't even want you to see them in person. They mail it. That I understand, but for the majority of watches, you can find most watches for sale around where you are that you can go see it in person before you buy it. And so, why do you just want to pitch an extra $3,000 away per watch? Like, I was waiting for that.
speak your truth. Oh, that
Yeah.
went on longer than I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah, but anyways, unless you just like doing that, then do it. But I think most people would agree. I don't want to just
Yeah.
piss away that money. So
No, I agree. I was there playing the 80 game, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not, but I mean, like I bought like my last watch from an AD, and I'm keeping names out. Like there's no bad thing, but I'm just I'm just not gonna go down that route. So I bought my last new watch like 6 months ago, and what was the oh god, now the story is coming back to me. There was an issue with the location of the watch because there's only one store that has the brand and the other one doesn't. So there was an issue with like the location and the pickup and the timing. One store sent the wrong watch to the other store. I sort of like threw I'm gonna say I threw a fit because I don't know what else to say other than I just got upset. I didn't really throw a fit. I didn't become a Karen or any of that shit. But I was just like, come on, guys. Like, look, I'm not. This is like an hour round trip for me, and this
yeah,
other store is 10 minutes down the road. Like, just send the watch there. Like,
yeah,
I'm not doing this guy. Like, I'm doing you a favor by buying this watch.
yeah. And they want
And
to act
so,
like because they're so spoiled by
wait,
being
wait,
praised
wait,
and
wait, hold on. It
uh,
it, it gets better. Because that's the point that I got to connect. Is that was what I had to convince them of was just send the fucking watch to let's just call it to my home store. Just send the fucking
mhm,
watch to my home store. And when push came to shove, and we get in there, I had like a little come to Jesus meeting, and I just had to tell her like, look, I've spent quite some money and quite
mhm.
some pieces over the last little bit, and it was just one of those chit chats after reading so many like Reddit threads and Facebook, messages about, well, your AD, and if your AD's not doing this, and if there's no discount, then like, why are you going? And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, why am I going there? And
yeah.
that was a conversation I had. Is like, look, y'all don't have to do any work. And I straight up told her that. I was like, y'all don't have to do any work
The
because
easiest
what I
answer.
do is I walk in here 2 or 5 or 7 times because I can't make my mind up,
Yeah.
and I ask to see a watch, right? And I bring my watch, and then I take it off, and then I put one or
Mhm.
two of your watches on, and then 10 minutes later I'm out the door, and then one day out of the blue I've made my mind up, snap, just like that, and I walk in
From
here and
nothing that they've done.
from nothing that you've done because I researched it on my own. You just
Mhm.
happen to be the supplier.
Yeah.
I can't shit a Grand Seiko out, or else I would.
Yeah.
So then I walk in there randomly one day, and I just point and I say, that one right there, I would like that one. And 20 minutes later, I'm out the door. Like, I'm
Mhm.
that kind of client. I'm not, you don't got to break out champagne for me. You don't got to pour me or make me a fucking old fashioned. You don't got to do any of that. Just give me my
Yeah.
watch. But
They're
at
they're
this,
literally order takers is what they
yes,
are. They're order takers that most of the time feel
yes.
like they're God.
Yes. And on this particular occasion, that was the conversation that I had is like, I come in here and I basically just point at the case and I say, box that one up, please. Take a couple links out, throw it on my wrist and swipe my card. Like, what are y'all doing for me? And I swear to God, the response that I got back was after some hemming and hawing even was it like 300 or $200 off of a brand new Grand Seiko Snowflake. So
Mhm.
like that was the result of that conversation, and I didn't feel like I needed to become an asshole and push that further.
Yeah.
I just took my $200 savings and walked out the door. And that was the last time that I bought. And to your point, and to everyone just sharing out there, it's like if that's the relationship that you guys have with your AD, just take the leap with us, take the leap of faith into Chrono 24, go find like a local watch trade, sell, buy, swap, whatever, so that you can maybe meet,
There's
if you live in a
yeah.
big town, if you live in LA or San Francisco or Atlanta, you can meet people, right? Like you don't have to just buy
Oh
it on
yeah.
eBay. But
They're
my point here is just
everywhere.
that like is to just reiterate, I guess David's point. It's just like there's no benefit in it for you. And then I guess people would say, well, sometimes you will get the call for a Rolex. Well, like I'm not getting the call. And I know that, I could be maybe pushing it, but it's like, I don't like that's the game that you're playing. So unless you
Mhm.
want a new Rolex, like a brand new one, then like I don't know why you would go and bother with like ADs because
Yeah.
unless you have a friendship and a relationship with someone that you do want to support, and I totally agree and validate that if that's the case, and if you want to support a colleague or just a professional relationship like that, then do it. But like, you're as a consumer, you're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero out of it.
Yeah.
Unless you
And the
just have so
world
much money that you don't care about pissing $3,000 away every time, like David said earlier.
Yeah. And
Sorry, go ahead.
the watch world is going back to normal where you don't have to, even Rolexes, you can get a Rolex for, right at around market value aftermarket. You're not paying five
Yeah.
grand extra. So
Yep.
I don't know. It's, do to each their own, but I think most normal people that don't sit there and hold their happiness on an AD's hand of, oh, I can brag and get this from my AD and you can't, then,
Yeah.
you should do it aftermarket. But to
Yeah.
each their own,
I
whatever
wonder if
makes your wallet happy. Just if you're not buying a Rolex and you're buying from an AD, you better hold that watch and never sell it because you're going to get your butt burnt.
yeah.
And even if you're keeping everything, if I'm sitting here and say I bought all these new Rolex, Omega, Breitling, Longines, Tag, another Breitling, blah 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 over the years, and I've spent $70,000 on a watch, just making up numbers here. A very high. Just say I spent $70,000 on a watch collection, and your watch collection's only worth really 30 now. How would that make you feel, even if you got it?
I
As
mean,
much as
hey,
you want to say you don't care about the value of the watch, about love the watch, blah 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 blah. When you spend that much money, you want to be like, yeah, I got a freaking baller watch collection, and then you go out there and say, well, I wonder what my watches are worth, because I do the same thing with mine.
yeah,
They're not worth near as much if you bought it from an AD, if they're not a Rolex. Hate to
nope.
break it to you, so you might as well soften that blow, buy it from Joma Shop, because Joma Shop or Chrono are very, they're very credible. Buy a Breitling from Joma Shop, it'll be real. It'll be real. Buy long jeans from Joma Shop. Buy a Grand Seiko from Joma Shop, or from your jeweler store guy down the road. They'll be real. It'll, you know.
To validate your point, I just opened up my Chrono 24 app and I looked at my collection, which works just like Stocks does. If no one has this, you could just punch in like I own one of these watches with this reference number, and it'll tell you what the aftermarket average value is. So my portfolio, let's just call that what it is, a collection / portfolio. The profit on the aftermarket that I'm currently gaining with one Rolex included in that, which, we all think should go up, is a total of $895. That's my total profit over a myriad of watches. So to David's point, like, yeah, when the market goes back down, it's like, what is that AD relationship worth at that point? Because the Rolexes are now the same cost as what they are from the AD. So if you're not supporting someone's professional relationship and their business, then
Yeah.
it can sometimes come back to bite you. I know every AD is not like this. Maybe it's just a one-off coincidence with me and with my buddy David here, but yeah, that's all. That's all I'm gonna say about it. And hey, look, we did just talk about my Grand Seiko. It's like that's a problem with it. That's why I don't have a Speedy right now, is because I'm struggling to sell that. So I mean, just take that for what it is. Cool, man. Well, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that to become like a tangent on like ADs, but it's a fun conversation. Hey, this is a watch podcast, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, we're talking about watches here, so hope you guys aren't complaining. Free
Yeah.
content.
All right. Well, cool. Yeah. I guess that'll wrap it up on Tag. Again, if you got any more questions, feel free to DM us, and we'll talk about them on the next episode. I think the next episode will be more of a revisit. Is that correct, Brett?
One of our next episodes is going to be a revisit of a brand that we've already done, and I hope that everyone's still listening at this point, because we are going to have a pretty awesome guest on. I know that guests are normally not our thing, but for this episode, I promise you, you are going to want to tune into this. It's going to be an amazing episode. Holiday season's coming up. My firstborn is literally due in 3 weeks from this recording date, so it's going to be busy. It's going to be tough, but we are going to try to slot that in. I mean, let's be honest. We will slot it, even if we have to wait. We will slot
this
person
interview would
in.
come in.
Yeah. So everyone just keep a lookout for that. So if you see a familiar face,
Might be a Christmas
/ brand,
surprise around
yes,
December.
and you'll definitely want to tune in for that. So with all of that, we will say adios. And the next time that we talk to you, I will probably be a father, and
Yep.
we will probably be talking about turkey, mashed potatoes, and American football, because we'll be closing in on Thanksgiving. So everyone, stay blessed. Peace.